When Toby Keith took his last breath in February 2024, the world just saw the news headlines. But Tricia Lucus felt her whole life fall apart in one single moment. For almost 40 years, she had been the quiet strength behind the guy that millions of fans loved. She was the one who supported his dreams way before anyone even knew who he was. Now, months after he passed away, the silence she kept because of respect and sadness has finally started to open up. And with it comes a story full of love, giving up things for each other, and the real truth Tricia has kept in her heart. Because nobody knew Toby Keith like she did, and nobody felt the pain of losing him more than the woman who stood by his side. Long before Toby Keith became one of the biggest stars in country music, Tricia Lucus knew him just as a brave, sure of himself young guy singing in smoky bars in Oklahoma after hard days working in the oil fields. She was 19, he was 20, and neither of them could have guessed how the next 40 years would tie them together through tough times, faith, and huge responsibilities. They met not at some fancy event or music industry party, but in a regular bar, a moment so ordinary it almost gets lost among all the big things that came later. But that first meeting stuck with Tricia forever, the way he walked so confidently, the way his voice filled the whole room, the way he seemed to have a dream way bigger than anything around them. In 1984, after dating for 3 years, they got married. It wasn't a fancy beginning. Toby was making $50,000 a year working in the oil fields, which was good money back then, but the whole industry crashed soon after. Suddenly, their steady life was gone. He started performing full-time with his band Easy Money, driving all over Oklahoma and Texas for little gigs, sometimes coming home with less money than when he left, and barely enough energy to keep trying. Bill collectors called all the time. They had kids to raise, and still Tricia never told him to give up, never told him to get a safer job. Lots of people told her to push him into a normal job, but she said no. She believed in him long before Nashville did. Toby was good enough at music that I had to let him try. She once said it would be a huge chance for both of us if he could make it. That belief became the base for everything Toby accomplished, because when he doubted himself, she didn't. When he worried he was hurting the family, she reminded him that real dreams are never easy. And when he thought about quitting music completely by the time he turned 30, she stayed strong, believing in a future she couldn't see yet. Her belief in him became the quiet power that helped their family through the most uncertain years of their lives. The years of hard times and the big break that changed everything. By the late 1980s, the heavy responsibility was really on Toby Keith's shoulders. He was getting close to 30, the age he had secretly set as his deadline to succeed or quit. Every night, after playing 5 sets over 5 nights for just a little money, he would drive home tired, wondering if he was being foolish, chasing a dream with 3 kids who needed him. Their money situation was as tight as it could get. Sometimes he drove far for shows only to get a flat tire on the road that he could hardly afford to fix. And still every morning he got up and tried again. Tricia saw everything. The anger, the doubt, the fear he tried to hide from the kids. She had already gone through years of tough working-class life, raising her first daughter Shelley by herself before Toby adopted her as his own. She knew about sacrifice better than most people. But watching Toby get turned down again and again in Nashville was a different kind of hurt. He sent demos, went to offices, waited in waiting rooms, but no doors opened. Still, she never let him see her own worries. Instead, she kept the family strong, handled the bills, built up his confidence, and reminded him why he started in the first place. Then, just days before his 30th birthday, things finally changed. A club manager Toby had become friends with gave his tape to someone in the music business. Around the same time, old friends from Oklahoma who had moved to Nashville took the same tape to the right office and put it in the hands of Harold Shedd, one of the most powerful people in country music. For the first time, Toby got a call not saying no, but asking him to come perform. After 2 live showcases, he had a record deal. When Should Have Been a Cowboy came out on radio in 1993 and shot up the charts super fast, it wasn't just his big moment. It was the time when every sacrifice Tricia had made finally paid off. She cried when she heard it on the radio for the first time. Not because the world finally knew his name, but because she had known it for years already. Their life was about to change forever. but neither of them guessed how amazing the good times would be or how hard the bad times would get one day. Family, fame, and the quiet strength behind the star. As Toby Keith's career took off big in the 1990s and 2000s, fame hit them hard in a way neither he nor Tricia was totally ready for. The world started seeing him as this huge, larger-than-life guy. The powerful voice behind I Love This Bar, the proud patriot and courtesy of the red, white, and blue, the smart businessman, the non-stop touring star, the icon who could fill a whole arena just by being there. But none of those sides of Toby would have existed without the steady support from the womanhood. Bo was with him way before any spotlight hit him. At home, Tricia was the calm center of their growing family. Their daughter Crystal was born in 1985, then their son Stetson in 1997. Crystal later followed her dad's footsteps into music, while Stetson built a good career as a businessman. And through everything, Toby never hid how much his life centered on them. In interviews, he often said that as much as he loved being on stage, nothing beat coming home and seeing Tricia and the kids. But raising a family while being famous was tough for real. Toby's schedule never stopped. Months of tours, recording, business stuff, and public events. It could have been easy for anger or distance to grow. But Tricia kept choosing to be his partner instead of getting upset. She went with him to award shows, stood next to him at music events, and carried the emotional load of being married to a guy pulled in every direction. When the oil fields crashed years before, she held their life together. Now, as Toby dealt with huge success, she protected the parts of their life that fame tried to take over. Their privacy, their kids' normal life, the closeness in their marriage. She liked simple dinners more than flowers, quiet times more than big parties, family moments more than celebrity craziness. Her love was real, down to earth, and never wavering. In 2022, when Toby got the BMI Icon Award, the family came together to celebrate. It was one of the last happy times before the tough stuff that none of them saw coming. The moment when the guy who always seemed so strong started facing the fight that would change their lives forever. The diagnosis that changed everything. In the fall of 2021, the normal rhythm of Toby and Tricia's life stopped suddenly and hard. After months of weird discomfort he couldn't explain, tests finally showed the bad news nobody wanted. Stomach cancer. We who had made it through the ups and downs of oil work, the harsh music business, and the pressures of worldwide fame. This was the first fight that really scared him. Not because of the pain, but because of the idea of leaving Tricia and their kids behind. The diagnosis made their world get small overnight. Tour dates vanished, business meetings got canceled, plans stopped for who knows how long. Their home in Nashville became both a safe place and a tough battleground. The place where Toby started treatment, and Tricia became not only his wife, but his caregiver, protector, and emotional support. Her days were filled with hospital trips, medicine times, food plans, and late nights when Toby felt weak and she quietly kept him strong. But even as the cancer got worse, Toby's faith grew deeper. He often talked about a calm feeling that came over him in the spring after the diagnosis, a peace he couldn't really explain, a kind of acceptance that didn't take away the fear, but made it softer. And Tricia, even though she was scared, matched his strength with her own hidden bravery. She learned all the complicated medical words, dealt with the tiredness that got worse each week, and handled the quiet pain of seeing the strongest guy she knew get weaker. By September 2023, when Toby showed up at the People's Choice Country Awards to get the Country Music Icon Award, Tricia was right there holding his arm as they walked the red carpet. She smiled proudly as he thanked his family and God for letting him be there that night. But behind her smile was the truth only she knew. That every step, every breath was getting harder for him. Friends, fans, and people in the industry saw a legend fighting hard. But Tricia saw the private, tough moments behind closed doors, the long nights, the weak mornings, the times when Toby looked at her with fear in his eyes, and she had to act like she wasn't falling apart inside. And yet, through all the pain, their connection only got stronger. Toby shared his deepest fears with her, and she protected him strongly, wanting to keep his dignity. As the cancer kept getting worse, the world didn't know how bad it really was until it was too late. But Tricia had already started getting ready for a goodbye she prayed wouldn't happen. His final days and the goodbye nobody was ready for. By late 2023, the effects of the fight were clear. Toby Keith had always been larger than life, a big presence on stage, a hard-working guy, a man whose voice could fill a huge arena. But in those last months, even easy things wore him out. Eating was hard, sleeping was uneasy, and walking across a room took energy he didn't have anymore. Through it all, Tricia stayed right by his side, quietly handling the hardest part of their marriage with the same loyalty she had shown since they were teens in Oklahoma. The family got closer than ever. Their kids, Shelley, Crystal, and Stetson, came over all the time, often sitting around Toby's bed to remember old times, to pray, or just to be there. Toby would squeeze their hands, sometimes whispering stories from his oil field days, sometimes talking about the first clubs he played in, sometimes sharing his wishes for his grandkids. Even in pain, he wanted to leave them with something special. And Tricia, standing nearest, took in every word with the heavy feeling that these moments were slipping away faster than anyone wanted. In January 2024, Toby quietly told something to his son-in-law's fiancée. She had asked him to walk her down the aisle since her own dad was gone. Toby said yes, but privately told her he was afraid he wouldn't make it to the wedding. That fear hit him harder than any award or big career moment ever had. It was a rare time when he let himself be open and weak, a moment Tricia saw with a broken heart. On February 5th, 2024, surrounded by his family, Toby took his last breath. For the public, it was just news. For country music, it was losing one of its biggest voices. But for Tricia Lucus, it was the end of the life she had lived for 40 years. The life she built, protected, and loved with the man who had become everything to her. In the statement the family put out that morning, they wrote that Toby had fought with grace and courage. But people who knew him also knew that Tricia had been the quiet strength behind that grace, holding him up when the cancer tried to break him, giving him comfort in the only place he ever really felt peace, being with her. His story ended that day, but hers was starting a chapter she never wanted to face alone. The speech that broke her silence. For months after Toby passed, Tricia Lucus stayed almost totally quiet. Sadness filled her days, and feeling responsible for keeping his memory alive was too much. People came up to her in grocery stores, at church, even at gas stations. Strangers who knew who she was would take her hand and say with tears, "I miss him every day." Tricia always replied the same, "Me too." And every time she felt the pain of losing not a famous star, but the guy who walked into a bar one day and won her heart with just his confidence and a cute, crooked smile. On October 20th, 2024, that silence finally ended. At the Country Music Hall of Fame induction ceremony, Toby Keith was getting honored with the medallion, the biggest award an artist in country music can get. It was something he had earned way before cancer came into their lives. But it was Tricia who had to accept it for him. She had never given a speech in public before. She had never stood in front of a crowd without Toby next to her. But that night, she walked on stage with a calm that even surprised herself. "There will never be another Toby Keith," she said simply. What came next was a 16-minute tribute that amazed everyone in the room. She spoke not like a famous widow, but like the woman who knew his real self long before the world knew his fame. She talked about the strangers who still cry when they see her. She spoke about his kindness, his funny side, his stubborn ways, his love as a dad, grandpa, and friend. She reminded everyone that Toby's legacy wasn't just his songs, but the lives he helped through the Toby Keith Foundation, the OK Kids Chorale, and the many families he quietly supported. He was great at everything he did, she told the crowd. His music, his kindness, and his humanity will live on not just past us, but past our kids and their kids. That night, something changed. The sadness was still there, deep and forever. But it wasn't alone anymore. By sharing his story, Tricia found the strength to carry her own. And the world saw that behind Toby Keith's famous voice, there had always been a woman with her own strong voice. Steady, loyal, unbreakable. Toby Keith's journey may have ended, but the love and strength he shared with Tricia Lucus keep echoing in every memory, every song, and every life he touched. Their story shows us that behind every legend is someone who loved them long before the fame. Which Toby Keith song means the most to you? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt stories.